Hey, I'm Michael Dorinda,
And I'm Jake Bennett.
and welcome to episode 152 of the North Meets South Web podcast.
You know, I like our long intro music. It was such a good song, such a good intro. I mean,
It still
you know,
is, but you listen to all the podcasts now, and all of them are just straight into it.
hey,
And
is that who
since
we are, Michael? Are we just
that
everybody
is,
else?
we're everybody else.
We're just following the whole,
I
no uniqueness necessary. Just,
I put
follow the
all of
lemon
my
lemmings right off the cliff.
uniqueness. No, I put all of my uniqueness into
Into your hairstyle. I
other
get
things,
it.
into my
I
hair.
understand. Yep. Your
My
hair. I
hair.
understand. Fair enough.
Someone said to me the other
Although
day, "What color is coming next?" I said, "I don't know. It's just Eli's got
it's looking
his
quite blonde.
school sports day coming up next week, I think. So I will go. He's in team blue, so I'll put some blue stuff in my hair for that.
There you go. There you
But
go.
just extreme blonde at the moment.
Nice. Hey, it's like that surfer blonde. It's and nearing the end of the summer, you're mourning the loss of summertime. So hey,
Yeah,
I get it.
yeah.
I understand. Hey, today I got, see if you can tell what I'm showing you.
You've got some new AirPods at last.
Yes, because the old ones were absolute garbage.
Did
And the only
they
way I
go in your
know
ear?
they
Is that the thing? They crackle and crackle and crackle, and then
and they
eventually
would
you just put up with
the
it
left
initially.
yeah,
And then you reset them a few times and they get better, and then they crackle again, and then it's like really annoying. But you're like, no,
Oh,
it's
so
not that
bad.
bad. Like I don't need to. And then and I was complaining to Ree about it, and she's like, just get new ones. I said, no, it's fine. And then she had reason to use them one time, and she was like, get new ones now. You can't
Yeah,
you
they're
can't
so
do
bad.
this now.
And like honestly, like my right micro, they wouldn't work if the microphone was on the right ear, so I had to switch it to the left ear
Yeah, to
because the
switch
microphone
it.
stopped working. And so like
Yeah,
if I ever just had the right one in, a phone call came in, I couldn't pick it up, so I had to grab the left one. It was
yeah.
annoying. And when I would put my finger on my left one to like adjust it, it would whistle, like it would whee in my ear, really high pitched. Oh, so annoying.
Every now and then, and it would just happen at random as well, and you'd be like, ah.
Yes,
So
exactly. And
I think
so finally,
it's just the AirPods, but yeah, the new ones are
yes.
nice. They often fall out of my pocket, and so they
Okay.
just end up somewhere. And it's the worst when they fall out of my pocket when I do bedtime with the kids, and they're like
Yeah.
left in the bed, and it's
Good
like
good luck trying to find them in
so
there.
now they've got Find My, they're much
Yes,
better
which is
with
so
but
nice.
like and they make the
The
sound
little
as well with the new
microphone
case,
at the
which
bottom.
you can't really
Yeah.
do when you suspect that you've dropped them in someone's bed, because you don't want to wake them up with that chirping. But
Yeah.
they are quite handy, much
Yeah,
easier to
because
find
the old
now.
ones, if you couldn't find them, you couldn't find them. There was
You couldn't
no,
find it. Yeah, and
yeah.
if you go to
And
the
so
Ben Orenstein, Adam Wathan's school of AirPods, as soon as you have to spend more than 30 seconds looking for them, you just go on apple.com and you buy new ones.
that's
That's it.
hilarious.
They'll turn up eventually, but you just get another pair. I think Adam's got
Oh,
like
they
5
are
or
awesome.
6 pairs
Oh
the last
yeah.
time I saw.
I mean,
He's like, you go to the swingers party and they put the keys in the bowl. Well, he's just got a bowl
mm-hmm,
full of AirPods.
mm-hmm. Yep. Just doesn't matter. They're all interchangeable. Just pick up a pair, put them in your ears.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, that's pretty funny. I was looking at AirPod Max, and I'm like, I don't know. I would consider getting some just for like when I'm sitting down for a long coding session. Yeah. Do you use them?
Usually only when I go to the office,
Okay.
because like these are good for noise cancelling, but they don't like
Sure.
block sound.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah. Yeah.
those are much better, the over ear thing, to just
Yep.
block out. But I
And
don't.
I've got an office.
When I'm at
I've got an
home, I've just
office.
got the
Yeah.
HomePods here, so I've just got the HomePods
Yep.
going on all the time. I don't really. They're good at night when I want. Like there are some TV shows that I want to, like we just watch, and it's fine if it's like it's dialogue or there's not much going on. But there are some shows like Halo, for example. I want to watch that with full volume, so I put the
Is that good? Should I watch
Max
that?
on.
Is it on what
They're-
channel is it on? Is it on Netflix or is it on Apple TV?
It's on
Plus?
Paramount
What is it?
Plus. It's Paramount Plus.
Oh, okay. I could get there.
Season 1 had a really strong pilot, and then a lot of like filler between episodes like 2 and episode 7, and then like 2 good episodes or whatever it was, 3 good episodes to close out the season, and then kind of ended. And then this season, I think, is much more in line with like the action aspects of Halo. But I think there's a lot of reticence around the fact that, for spoilers. skip forward 30 seconds.
Okay.
That that they're not wearing their suits. Like there's a lot of the like not there's still action parts, but there are a lot of like action parts out of their like Master Chief suit. So I think there's some complaints about that. But they've spent a lot of time. I enjoy it. The episodes are 45, 50 minutes, an hour long.
Did you play Halo as well growing up? Like, did you know Halo storyline?
I've played and finished all of the like single player Halo games. I never got into like ODST.
See, that would be
the multiplayer stuff.
Me,
but yeah,
to me that'd be like if they came out with like a Half-Life show or something, because that was like that was my jam when I was a kid. Loved that stuff.
Yeah, they're doing something comes out next month. There's Borderlands, which is a movie. The trailer came out a couple of weeks ago, and there is Fallout. I think HBO's
really? Fallout. That sounds interesting.
The Fallout is out next month, which would be interesting to watch. I've never played Fallout. I couldn't. It gave me the headaches and the head spins of there are some games that just do it to me where I can't play them because the motion or whatever. They just give me terrible headaches and stuff. So that was one of those games. But I'm into watching TV shows and things like that. So I'll definitely
I feel like I'm more about a movie than TV series. Now, some people would be like, "Oh yeah, but a TV series can go like so much further in depth and everything." And it's like, yeah, it can, but I just don't have the patience or the commitment. It's like I want to go and watch a 2-hour movie. So I went and watched Dune 2, for example. Like it was like 3 hours. It was so good though, so good. Really long, but really good. And like I'm glad they didn't make it a TV series. It's just not the same. Like you can't watch a TV series in IMAX. You know what I mean? So it's like.
Well, they're doing
it was really fun.
Harry Potter. They're revisiting Harry Potter. I think HBO or Max or whoever they've picked it up, and they're going to do like each book will be a season of the show.
That's
so
cool.
it'll be interesting to see how they kind of do
There's
that.
There's a big enough fan base. It'll do fine. Harry Potter's so popular. Even I mean, just with like the young generation now. Like my kids love the Harry Potter books.
Yeah,
and so it's funny. It just sticks around. It's got a lot of staying power.
Certainly does.
Hey, help me understand here. What does reticence mean?
Like
you said, there's a lot of reticence around, and I was like, I don't know I know what that word means.
It's
I know it's so funny because we use words and then we're like, I know what it means in context.
Yeah, it's like when you kind of like people are kind of against it because it's like people want essentially pick up the story and all of the action and whatever, like basically pick up the campaign from the game and put it into a TV series.
Yep.
Which is, but like. Gamers are always like that. They're like, it's not exactly how I want it, then it's no good.
I know. It's like
just
the people who read the books
enjoy the thing for what
like,
it is.
It's like, I read the books. It's not like the books. It's like, I know it's different on purpose. Like it's not supposed to be the book.
I learned about this in like 8th grade English, 9th grade English. It's like when they adapt books to different mediums, whether TV or movie, they can't just do the same thing. Like the storytelling has to be different in the visual medium. You don't get, the exposition and like all of the explanatory stuff. You don't know what the characters are thinking. Like you have to tell the story in a different way. And so, yeah, look, it's like maybe it's not true to the story. Everyone goes on. There's lots of lore around it, and things like that. When the new Mortal Kombat movie that came out a couple of years ago.
But I know what it was. Yeah, it looked interesting.
Everyone was kind of like, there's so much lore and story to Mortal Kombat that you didn't have to, like, you inserted a character into the movie to tell the story of like what Mortal Kombat is. And I think I see it from that point of view where you're making a movie for a certain demographic, like you're making a movie for Mortal Kombat fans. But I think they went to the point where they were like, we're trying to bring new people into it. And I think when you do that, you are making a different piece of media.
Yeah, totally.
You're trying to pick up a new audience. It's like there's 20 or 30 years of Mortal Kombat. People can go back. They don't need the backstory. They don't need to know. Like there are elements of it, but don't like create a character to tell the story because you don't want to risk people, not understanding something. So they can go and check that stuff out after. I think, that's the same with Halo. Like just tell a story.
There we go.
Anyway.
Well, that was kind of 10 minutes of something you didn't come maybe to hear, but maybe you did. I don't know. Sometimes people are like, oh no, I like
Who
the
knows
sort
what
of
this podcast
pre-show.
is anyway?
Who does? I mean, I remember back when we first started, we had people on all the time from like, we had Freak on, and we had Marcel, and we had Taylor and Adam, and all those folks. And now we just sit down and chat. I mean, maybe we should line up more guests. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah. So guess what I broke out again today? Actually, yesterday.
What'd you break out today?
State machines, of course.
State machines.
X state for the win. So there was this. Let me tell you the scenario, okay?
Mm-hmm.
There was a field, and we needed to be able to have a file number entered in the field. And then when they pressed enter or tabbed out, it needed to go fetch 3 different things. And as long as all 3 of them returned successfully, you needed to put a green checkbox in. But if it did not, you needed to put a red error symbol. Well, if any of them fail, you can immediately put the error symbol in. But you have to wait until all 3 of them succeed to put the green checkbox in, right?
Yeah.
And if you get 1 success and an error, you just throw error. But if you get a success after an error, you have to make sure it doesn't change back to success, because it's not success, it's error, right? And then you can't do anything to change that error state or that success state unless you change the file number, right? So if you had, let's say like 1, 2, 3, and it errored, well, we're not going to retry 1, 2, 3 unless you change it, because it's invalid, right? So it's like if you change it, if you do on change, then you need to change it back to a ready state so it can go from ready to loading again, right? Yeah. So this was a complicated issue, and like it became apparent because the developer who was working on it was inspecting like 5 different fields all at the same time to determine what state he was in. And it became obvious to me that it wasn't going to work. It wasn't going to be sustainable when I was having 2 icons overlaid on top of each other at the same time, right? There was like an error icon and a loading icon and a success icon at the same time. It's like, how do you get into that weird state? But it's possible because you have those weird. Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so Schrodinger's icon. Yes. Yeah. And so anyway, really interesting. I should share it, but
state machines to the rescue again.
Exactly. That's literally what it was. And so we had a ready state, a loading state, a success state, and an error state. But the thing that was cool about this is in the success state, you had 2 different you had a event that I was listening for in the loading state, you had an event that you could listen for, success, okay? Or error. So if you had error, you'd immediately transition to the error state, right? But if you had success, you wouldn't do anything immediately. You would just kind of wait, right? So if you had a success state, what you would do is instead of transitioning to another event, you would run an action. And the action was increment success count. So when you were on loading state, you could accept one of 2 events, error or success. Error, take you immediately to the error state. Success increments the success count. But every time you would come to the loading state, again, every time any event that it was listening for would come in, there was this thing called always, and it would evaluate this statement every time. And so what it was is it was an always, and it was a conditional that said, if you've reached a success count of 3, then you should target the success state. And so it would you would hit it. Yep, I got success on one of them. Okay, great. We'll increment the count. Success on another one. Okay, great. We'll increment the count. Success on the third one. Okay, great. We'll increment the count. Oh, is it 3? Yes, it is. Transition to that other state. So that was the magic sort of stuff there. And then the nice thing is, if you transition from the loading state to the error state doesn't listen for success events anymore. So it doesn't matter. If you got a success event after an error, it's not going to change it back to success because it can't. It's not listening for that anymore. So it was perfect. It was just a perfect use case for when you would need this state machine. And it's so beautiful. Like, I got rid of literally 8 variables. Like, it was just so nice. And so
it's nice to have that real world example as well. Like, mindful of the fact that you have this talk coming up to kind of like refresh it a little bit. If you wanted, you've got a real example to use rather than the contrived, I mean, the invoice is a good one as any, but having, we're telling the same story, but with a different example from a real world application is always nice to have. And it's not always possible, obviously, when you're giving a talk to translate like something from your work into the talk. But having the ability to do that and having like this tangible thing that it's like, I've not just come up with this contrived example, because then you have to think about all of the situations in which you might apply that or use that for the purposes of telling or giving the talk. You've got like, no, these are the things that I have proven to be true with a real concrete example.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Like this is a real world thing that I actually did that I used this for. So anyway, yeah, that was really cool, and it cleaned it up a lot, and it felt really nice to be like, validated again. Like, yes, this is the correct solution for this location. Not always is it, but a lot of times it is, and so that felt good. I was trying to see if there's any other libraries I could use to do it in a smaller form, like in a much smaller way, but it was just like, nah, I'll just go back to XState for JavaScript stuff. So it's good. So that was sort of a recent thing I've been working on. I mean, other than that, it's basically been just all out sprints, man. We've just been killing it. Like we've got so many things in flight right now. It's kind of crazy. I was messaging a guy that's like a senior at another company, like, hey, dude, what would you think about like spending a couple of hours a week, like a day a week, just reviewing pull requests for me? Just like I just need another set of eyes from a senior to just take a look and say like, oh, no, it doesn't look right. Like, or you didn't think about this, or you know what I mean? I don't need him to write code. I just need him to look at code and just point out areas where it's like, that doesn't seem like correct, because it's like, there's like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 pull requests out there at a time. And it's like, I can get to some of them, but I can't get to all of them.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't want everybody waiting on me. So.
Yeah. Well, now that we've kind of combined our back end and front end into a single repository, there are like 20 or 30 pull requests on the go at any one time. And it's like, okay, I only want to look at the back end one. So I forced everyone to tag or label their PRs. And so I will only look at the back end ones and usually only either if I'm like between tasks or if someone specifically asks me to look at something, because my code review, like we all review each other's code, which is good.
Sure.
And now that the team has grown, there's people at different levels that like you can write the code, you can review the code. Even like the junior reviewing up to a senior's code is good as well, because they're going to ask questions. They're not just going to assume that something is correct, or they're going to see things in a different way. They won't understand things necessarily. Like if you use a collection pipeline, they might ask, what are you doing here? Or why did you do it this way? Or whatever. So it's good from that perspective to kind of get the team writing more approachable code, I think, rather than just like benevolent me reviewing everyone's. And that like takes a lot of time as well. But I find that when I'm in a position to review code, the outcomes are very different to when, other people are reviewing code, and I'll find things that others won't see, or I have a different level. And there's like a lot of it is also the feel, like, when you're reviewing code, there's the feel of the code.
It's like your preference. Yeah, it's just like, hey, this doesn't feel right. It's like, well,
and
why?
it's
Where's the rule that tells me that's not the case? It's like, well, there's no rule. It just doesn't feel right.
There's no rule. But like when you look at like a constructor and using constructor property promotion, like where do you draw the line between all of those things being on one line? Well, sorry, not.
Oh, sure.
Constructor property promotion is probably not a good example, but like a method. Where do you draw the line between having all of the parameters on one line, and when do you start to split it up so it's one per line?
Sure.
And it's and I think like our sort of soft rule is when it gets to like 120 characters, you kind of start splitting it up just to kind of make it easier to read. Especially now that we're kind of embracing types a bit more and we're using more complicated method signatures. When you've got like, this is an array or null, that kind of stuff, or a nullable array. And then you've got like, this is an object of type whatever. And so these things then start taking up more room. And it's not just a matter of looking at like dollar variable equals, null, comma, or whatever. Now you're looking at like 2 or 3 pieces of information potentially for every method argument. So splitting them up onto one line, each of them being on one line, it makes it a bit easier to digest as well. And sometimes you might look at it and you go, I'm, passing too many variables in here. Maybe I've missed something. And that, it's that kind of thing where rewriting the code in a different visual presentation, from 1 line to 5 lines, makes you sort of stop and think a little bit more about what you have actually written and whether or not it is the most appropriate way of writing that piece of code. You might find, we need to actually set something as an instance property on the class and then reference that rather than passing it between methods and so on and so forth. So It does help, I think, to reveal some patterns about your own code, and certainly makes it easier to approach refactoring in
Yeah.
terms of like, what it ends up looking like.
Yeah. Yeah, or like things like how often should you use like a form request? Like if you only have like one thing to validate, should you use a form request to do that? Or shouldn't you? Like do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Which one
Yeah.
should you use? Like so anyway, some of those things are
Yeah.
coding standard things you literally could probably, you could enforce those things with like pests, architecture plugin and things like that
For
probably.
sure.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you, just
Um
on form requests, because I know that you're a fan of them,
I am,
do
yeah. Hmm.
you use Sparsy's Laravel data package at all?
I don't. We've talked about it before. You and I have actually, and
Mm-hmm.
if we've been talking about it a little bit inside of our other chat, as far as like where should like the line be drawn for when a form request is used, or if you should say like, yeah, we only use form requests up until this point. So we say,
Mm-hmm.
once you're out of the controller, it should no longer be a form request. It should now be something your domain owns. It should be a DTO. It should be something like that.
Yeah.
Um, we do have places in our code where the request is literally drilled three layers deep, right? That's not great. So I could see using Spassy's package. It certainly makes it a lot easier, right?
Mm.
But I'm sure there's some, using any tool for long enough, you'll find the spots in which it fails, right? Where it's like it's
Yeah.
insufficient and you have to do something else. So I can't speak to that though because we don't use it. So I know you guys do though. How's it going with it?
Yeah. All right. So I will pose you then it's not a hypothetical, it's hypothetical for you,
Okay.
but it's
Okay.
the reality for me. We have a form request, right? It has all of its rules, it does the validation. We then take that and we pass it into the Laravel data object.
Okay.
Now, the Laravel data objects have these magic creation methods. So you go like person name, colon, from, and then you pass it the request.
Okay. Yep.
And what it will do is it will look for either a from request method on the on that data object
Yep.
and
Yep. That makes
resolve it
sense.
using that. And then you
Uh-huh.
can do all kinds of creative things like from model or from user model. So
Sure.
you could specifically do this, and then Laravel, the package itself uses reflection and some magic to kind of figure out like of these magic creation methods. So they all start with from, they're all public, they're all static. Which one best maps to this thing that I have been passed, and it
Interesting.
kind of
Okay.
instantiates the object. Now, from model, from array, from string, these are all fine. What I find, and I want to hear your take on this, is that if it's building the request from, if it's building the data object from a request, it does its own validation to make sure that all of the input in the request, so the stuff you take from like request input, request JSON or whatever,
Yep.
maps
Yep.
to a property on the data object before it calls the from request method,
Hmm.
right? So in the example of like person data, you might have your data object as name, email, phone number for simplicity's
Okay.
sake. But in the request, we're capturing first name, last name,
Mm-hmm.
email, phone number.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
because in the specific instance of a request, what it does is it passes it through this like pipeline of um, stuff where it normalizes the request, it does all this other kind of stuff. But the thing that has tripped me up is that we'll also do a level of validation, that there is a property on your data object that matches your request. So keeping in mind that I have a request that has first name, last name, phone, and
Right.
email, and a
Yeah.
data object that has name, phone, and email. In my from request method, I would then take first name, last name, concatenate it into
Right.
name, and then
Yep.
instantiate the object. But
Mm-hmm.
because the request does not match the DTO exactly, it hits the validation error in the Laravel data package that says this field is required, name is required, but it's not set. So then you've got to like do these gymnastics around using this other prepare for pipeline method, which then allows you to kind of massage the request into a format that matches the DTO, but it kind of muddies things up a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I think
So now we've got like two places doing validation where I would expect that all of that request validation happens in the request object and that you don't try and magic it up for me in the data object itself.
Yeah, well, because it's also not even like the rules that you have specified in your form request, right?
Yeah.
It's different. It's like it's magic rules that aren't even really defined anywhere except for that the package is going to do it.
Well, it's based on the definition of
so like if
the.
If you say public first name,
on
public,
what's in the constructor,
or say public full name, yeah,
public
exactly,
string name, public string name, public string phone number, public string email. Like those are the three things. So it will
I guess the thing that would be a
request.
I guess the thing that would be nice is if it did something like if it had like a use validates before request or something like that. If there was like a trait or something that you could turn on or off, because then that would make a lot of sense. But to say like that from request method is just automatically sort of getting this decorator around it that's going to do all the validation stuff, like that feels a little bit weird. It feels like, because now what you have to do is you almost have to like create your own static method on that thing called from our requests, you know what I mean, and then pass it the form request that way and then handle it by instantiating it yourself. But
I mean, the problem is that it specifically checks if the input to the from method is an instance of request. And if it is, and then it will shove it through this pipeline, right?
Yeah, so that makes sense.
You don't even get access to your own magic method until it's run through that process.
Rough. No, that's rough.
So, there are two options, right? It's either conform your request exactly to the data object. Or actually there's three options. So that option one is to conform your request.
Go ahead. Yeah, you figure it out. You say it, because
the second option is to call from request directly, which then skips the magic creation. Okay, and the third one is to use, which is what we've done, is to use like the without validation attribute on those properties to specifically say, don't try and be smart about this. I know how I'm going to massage this in the from request method. Like I don't, and I haven't gone into like the commit history of the package or to try and figure out like why this was implemented, like what the thought process was behind it. But for me, it feels a bit counter. Like it's not a PHP agnostic package either. It's specifically for Laravel. So it's like, I'm giving you a form request. You know that it's a form request, which I have already validated. I want to use the from request method, which I will do the mapping from what's in the request to what's in the DTO. But you are preventing that from happening by, doing this level of validation. So I just wanted like a second, third, fifth set of eyes at this point is to be like, is this weird? Like, should I get onto Fake
I mean, like,
excuse me.
Because I think what they've done is they've decided to take the road of saying that we are going to define the conventions, and now you can adhere to the conventions, or you can do the long way and opt out by yourself. Right. Yeah. And so I think that's probably the route that they've decided to go. And that's very Spassy of them, right? Like, so they give you an escape hatch, but they're basically saying, if you want to use this package, this is the way that we use it. And we've decided to just follow strictly our requests, which map straight into our DTOs, which map straight into our models, which map straight into our, you know what I mean? Or maybe something like that.
Yeah.
So if it was me doing it, I mean, let me think about how I would do it. If I was doing it myself, what I might do is I might call the from request method directly in my controller. Yeah. And then just let my from request method handle that. And then using from request would just do, it'd skip the validation stuff. And I could still use from anywhere else, knowing it's, if I'm using that request method, it's not, if I'm using that request object, it's not going to work. But that's okay. I would just use from request in those instances. And I guess document well that's why it is that way.
Yeah. I suppose if you look at it from the perspective of the Laravel data object that is created from a form request is being done with the specific intent to give typed, inferred access to the properties, then yes, it makes sense that, this is to replace basically that request object wholesale. And so whatever you map in the DTO needs to match exactly what is in the request. And it's to stop
Yep.
you from passing the request around and using like request import
Yep.
all
Yep.
the way through. Because, you know, we know that that's error prone. That you could have a typo in the string, you request import, you know, name, and you forget the E and it's just nam, and then you end up with null.
Yeah.
Can
Right,
you know
right.
be trickier to diagnose than to do request nam on, you know, the typed object, which will tell you no, nam doesn't exist here. So I guess if that's the intent, it's just that, you know, you're not always in control of the data coming into that request, I suppose, but you're always in control of the data object. So maybe it's a PR that I send to the documentation to say that like this is the specific intent, just to clarify that. And like I'm happy to have the conversation, I think, with I think Ruben is responsible for the package, to say like, why is it like this? And if my understanding based on what we've just said is correct, then can I send a PR to the docs to say like, this is the intent of using the form request, using the from request functionality
to map one
and
to one.
Then it's like clear, and then everyone understands. Because like it tripped me up for ages, and I was trying to find a way around it, and I was, you know, source diving through the package, and it's created in such a way that it's like it makes sense, but it's, you know, you've got to jump through a few classes to find out where this behavior is actually happening, and going, oh, okay, I understand why
there
this
it is.
happening
I
now,
can see.
but I
It's
don't
an illuminate
understand
request.
why it's happening, kind of thing. So
yeah, that makes sense. I thought when you were originally saying it, that you were saying that it would basically run the validation step again on your form request. I was like, that seems odd.
Yeah. No,
like,
it's doing its own like assertions.
I got it. Yeah.
Like, you know, it's using reflection to find out, you know, what are all the properties, what are their types, does this thing exist, is it of the correct type? And like, because I haven't actually got it working in the way that I guess the package intends it to work, you know, I assume that if you type it as a string, it's going to use request import, but if you type it as an integer, it'll use request integer or request boolean to kind of make sure that all of those types match up for you.
Here's one other option for you. Are you ready? The other option you could do is you could, in your form request object, you could append a full name attribute to the request in the form request object. So you could say like after validation, and then that's going to, you know, make sure that everything's valid. And then you could say this, I think it's, I don't remember if it's like this request or this attribute push. It's something like that. Anyway,
you can
set the value. Yeah, you can set the value basically. And so then you could just do it in there, and then anytime you get the form request, as long as it's valid, it's going to push that value in there, and then when you pass it through, it's just going to set it. No big deal. That way you don't have to do any of that other stuff. It would just work.
Yeah.
And that would work every time. I mean, as long as you, as long as you validated it, I suppose. But what you're going to do, I mean, it's going to happen automatically when you use form request in the controller stuff.
Yeah. I think now
it's just where do you want to put the logic, you know?
Yeah. I think now having this conversation, having said it out loud, I've like talked myself into believing that it is the correct approach, with the assumption that like that is exactly what the intent is.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
That the data object should in fact map the request one-to-one. And so yes, you are defining the things in two places, but it does mean that you get a typed object as you go, you know, through the application depths.
Yep. Exactly.
We've hacked around it for now, and we're just leaving it at that. But it'll be something to keep in mind for future, because like none of the other people on my team that had been working with it had encountered this problem. And I'm like, have you not encountered? Like, are you calling the from request method directly? Are you
right?
But if I think I figured in the end that they were in fact, doing the mapping of the form request one-to-one with the data object, and that makes sense that they never hit the issue then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it is really nice just to have that typed object you can pass around and new up in tests and all that stuff without having to have a form request and then pass it.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, really nice.
All right, I've talked myself into
we're at our
thinking
time.
It's okay. We are.
Yes, indeed. We are out of time. Hey, thanks folks for hanging out with us. 152. I was going to say Laravel News, not Laravel News. northeastsouth.audio/152 for show notes. Hit us up on Twitter at Michael Dorna, at Jacob Bennett, or at North South Audio. Rate us up in your podcatcher of choice. 5 stars would be amazing. Until next time, folks, we'll see ya. Peace.
Bye.